Welcome to The Authority File, the podcast where you'll hear conversations with academic librarians, technologists, researchers, and authors whose work is laying the foundation for higher education's future. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. If you're new to The Authority File, you can listen to and find previous episodes on all of the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and on our website, choice360.org. My guest for this series is Dr. Niklas Lidstromer. Dr. Lidstromer is a specialist physician and a postgraduate researcher in artificial intelligence in medicine. He's a founder of an AI-powered medical platform and has been the head of medical AI at a variety of medtech companies. He's also the co-editor of the Springer Nature title published this year called Artificial Intelligence in Medicine, a reference work that covers the challenges, opportunities, and ethics in the use of AI in medicine. In this series, which is provided with support from Springer Nature, Dr. Lidstromer and I discuss his research background, his new book, how AI is currently being used in medicine, and where academic librarians fit in the growing research and availability of medical data in the field. In this final episode of our series, we look at the current trends and future developments and innovations within artificial intelligence in medicine. You've mentioned that AI can, quote, dethrone doctors as all-knowing. How would this work, and what are the ways in which a patient can be empowered through AI applications that way?
Yes, I think it's a dethroning that we shall not fear, though, but may very much be looking forward to, because we are not all-knowing. And I mean, some people are, of course, pretending they know things and they're hiding incompetence, which is, of course, dangerous. But so dethroning is healthy, I think. And historically, I mean, up to the 1950s or so, medicine was much more intensely influenced by Hippocrates. And for millennia, it had been natural, for instance, not to inform a patient about a cancerous diagnosis. So just not tell the patient she or he has cancer was absolutely natural. And it was, natural not to involve the patients into matter that could be of their, concern.
Right.
Which is, of course, completely the opposite now. So, in other words, it used to be natural, and then we have an increase the last decades only with much more transparency. So we're seeing the fall of a much more conservative, paternalistic approach, and to a more informative, progressive, liberal one. So I think with AI tools that enter the pockets of the patients, or they are available online or in mobile phones or even inside the patients if you have inoperables powered by AI and so on. Patients will have access also to open AI clinical decision support systems.
Right.
So the patient will face an armamentarium of many other, hitherto locked away tools and gadgets. So it's an anti-hierarchical direction, I would say. So, but still, even though there's always a need for a highly medically educated human in the loop, but the quality as a bottom line will be refined and augmented, I think.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot more data available to the patient, but I imagine it has to be presented in a way that they could understand and
yes,
and use. But to your point, also, then obviously the expert needs to be in the room as well to interpret it for them and help them with that.
Yes, it's a question of connecting vastly different specialties. Also, can't be easy, but with the help of specialist tools and a human in the loop, I mean, the patient and the doctor can make a decision together, an informed decision. And I think it would be to the more beneficial compared to before.
Mm-hmm. So, looking ahead, I'm curious. What are some of the major innovations yet to appear? I mean, what's on the horizon?
Yeah, one of the coolest things are, for instance, an AI that can create new AI. I mean, an algorithm that can actually suggest new algorithms. That's of course something which I read
Wow.
during this book. It's not here yet, but it can definitely come. But otherwise, we will see. I would say more closely, we'll see a dissemination of really sharp tools. I mean, which can spread both capabilities, as we spoke of, which are not considered highly which are considered highly specialist, medical competence tools right now, but which will come into the hands of GPs. For instance, ultrasonography probes instead of stethoscopes. The stethoscope will be replaced probably by an AI-powered probe for ultrasonography with a higher level of automation and so on. And so we'll see in the primary healthcare setting, we'll see a plethora of apps and devices, and ultimately also in the hands of patients. I mean, a few examples on top of my head. For instance, we have, when we had the pulse oximeter, when it came into the market, it's a device which measures the oxygenation rate, SpO2. Now, before it required calculations, blood samples, and so on to really know. Now, or actually to look at the patient, see how blue the lips were, and so on. But when it entered the market, we literally at our fingertips put it on the tip here, finger. We literally got a new clinical now ubiquitous parameter, which is used in triaging and so on. It's used everywhere. And in the same manner, we will have new parameters at our fingertips coming. For instance, if you monitor someone with heart failure now, you need to perform an operative procedure in a cath lab where you put in a catheter in the right wrist, for instance, and you can measure mean pulmonary artery pressure or capillary wedge pressure and many other parameters that come up with that. But now already there is a device which is as big as a small mobile phone. You put it on the chest, and wirelessly with 5 different sensors, it can sense the mean pulmonary artery pressure in a few seconds. So there's for that reason, there's no need for a catheterization, which is a whole operation. You need to send the whole patient to hopefully the whole patient to a cath lab and then perform this operation with all the risks of infection and so on and whatnot. And now you can actually do it at home, in the elevator, in an ambulance, in the A&E department, and so on. So that's just a whole new parameter. Imagine a patient with sepsis and so on. If you have that gadget, that would be, and that's just one example. There are many other. And another example is transdermal optical imaging with the mobile phone camera. You can actually direct it towards the face, and you can get blood pressure, heart rate, temperature, cardiac output, stress level, and so on. And there are some attempts with infrared camera where they have tried, not so successfully, but they have tried, and to some parts they've shown even blood glucose level and even long-term blood glucose level, which is it's an explanation of how they can calculate that. But I mean, there are some quite insane applications, and the market will be flooded with that. And of course, that will have a huge impact on patient power, I think.
Yeah. So you've got a new book coming out, right, on AI, and it's coming out from Springer. What's that going to be about?
Oh, that's a book which is specialized only on AI in COVID-19, and it is co-edited with Professor Junina Eldar. It was her idea, by the way. She approached me and said she had this fantastic idea, and I couldn't say no. And so we gathered some experts and wrote a few chapters by ourselves, and it's a nice overview of everything that AI can do for this present or against this present pandemic and the future ones as well. I mean, we were surprised by this, but we shouldn't have been. We have so many monitoring tools and testing tools and so on. So we and also epidemiologically, I mean, we can monitor and survey and so on future pandemics better. I think we learned something from this. So this book can be used to understand the future pandemics and the present one, And I also took the opportunity to write about all the conspiracy theories and so on, to just put in a sober and scientific voice into the debate. I mean, there's so much mumbo jumbo being said about this, but so a sober and enlightened overview, I hope.
Right. Are these, are you talking about in this book applications that came about as a result of the pandemic in the last couple of years, or are these AI applications that have been around that you are now saying, okay, these would be great for, treating, future pandemics and the one we're currently in?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's as I said, we shouldn't have been surprised by the pandemic, but because most of the techniques we did have, for instance, drug development, but with AI, you can have candidate drugs, vaccine candidates that you can assort and test and so on with AI much more efficiently.
Mm.
Than without. And also with AI, you can have pool testing. If you expect a negative result in the vast majority, you can pool the tests. It was a team at Princeton who wrote about that. And also in epidemiology, it's really epidemiology on steroids when you use AI. And also, my own professor at Karolinska, Eric Kalinius, he wrote about the deterioration of a COVID patient. And so we can actually predict very early who will become septic, who will die from the disease or not. I mean, if you know that a few hours or days before, you can actually you can change the course or direction to actually stop the development in time.
Excellent. I'm curious how you view artificial intelligence in medicine from a global perspective. Different countries obviously have different priorities and views around ethics. International competition is fierce. How do we ensure positive outcomes in this kind of environment?
Definitely, it's a fierce competition, and of course, it can tilt in favor of rich countries and so on.
Right.
But there are applications, and also in developing countries, and I think particularly remote and telemedicine can benefit from AI. And with such, you can actually reach out to low-income countries or developing economies with high-quality AI-empowered equal care coming out. I mean, mobile phones are really spread. Sometimes they are more spread than hygienic installations. So you have more phones than VCs and so on. And so in that aspect, you can actually reach out with very high quality medicine. And I must also say that, of course, there are different cultures and ethnicities and religions and so on around the world. But some of the conclusions, preliminary, that I have seen in my studies of co-ownership and the cloud-based computing and so on, is that it is almost as if there is, although a by evolution given universal ethics. I mean, we are good to each other as human beings in general, and so I think there's more common, between different cultures than things that divide us. Actually, I tend to focus on the positive side.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Right. So how do you see another question on librarians, and how do you see librarians fitting into the increased availability and output of medical data? For example, will they be tasked with sifting through or curating data for researchers?
Yeah, I think generally more advanced requests from your kind of customers, researchers. And for instance, when I did my last systematic review and meta-analysis, I definitely acknowledged the librarians. It really underlined how much they had meant for the whole review. And I think that very soon we'll see the librarianship and the co-authorship being fused. So librarian and researcher, that is a team that will be even more articulated in the future.
Excellent. Well, that's all the time we have. Dr. Lindstromer, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much.
You just heard from Dr. Nicholas Lidstromer. Dr. Lidstromer is a specialist physician and a postgraduate researcher in artificial intelligence and medicine. He's a founder of an AI-powered medical platform and has been the head of medical AI at a variety of medtech companies. He's also the co-editor of the Springer Nature title published this year called Artificial Intelligence in Medicine, a reference work that covers the challenges, opportunities, and ethics in the use of AI in medicine. This series is brought to you with support from Springer Nature. As always, underwriting opportunities for the Authority File podcast are directed by Choice's advertising manager, Pam Marino, and all of our episodes are produced and edited by Choice's digital media producer, Sabrina Kofer, with support from digital media assistant, Ashley Roy. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.